Okay, you guys are live now.
I'd like to call a public safety meeting to order, please. All members are present. Can I get approval of the previous meeting we held, the minutes to the previous meeting?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right, thanks. We have one new piece in front of us today. Ordinance enacting Title III, Chapter 33, Article 3 of the Akron Code of Ordinances to provide for prompt release of footage from city-issued body-worn cameras or other city-issued video recording equipment that documents the use of deadly force by a police officer against a person or the use of force by a police officer resulting in serious bodily injury to a person in accordance with Charter Section 141A adopted by the electors of the City of Akron and declare an emergency. And I do believe Ellen has a presentation for us.
Thank you, Chairman Kamer. Yes, I do, but I didn't know if either of the sponsors, both Mayor Horgan and President Somerville, are here, so I'll defer to them if they'd like to make any opening statements.
Thank you so much, Ellen and Councilman Kamer. I definitely wanted to just bring forth just a couple remarks. Again, this piece does deal with our charter amendment on the body cam issue that actually was on the ballot last November, and it passed overwhelmingly with support, I think, which definitely shows that the residents of Akron really believe that it is important for us to have accountability and also transparency. And so we are really excited to be able to present this body cam release legislation on today. I just want to take an opportunity just to thank the Charter Review Commission and Mr. Bill Rich, who chaired that commission. Again, when I brought the concept to the commission, it was all about an opportunity for the city of Akron to really lead in this space of accountability and transparency. And so we should all really be proud because we are doing just that. So I also want to thank Mayor Horgan for all of his support, but a really big thanks to our law department and also to Ellen for all of their work on putting this together. When you are a leader, that means you can't really look to too many cities, right, to create what you'll see today. So all of this is a lot of hard work by the law department and Ellen, and hopefully the city of Akron will be a leader and other cities will look to us and this very legislation that you will see today through the presentation. I don't know if Mayor Horgan's online.
Yeah, I was just muted, but thank you. Yeah, I want to echo your sentiments, and I think it's one of a number of steps that we have taken as a city, even before 2020, going back to when probably one of the first big cities in the country, at least in the state of Ohio, when we instituted the police auditor and working through it, and really on those processes, as the vote changes and those results come in, it took about 6 months to work through the process of how that does get released and, what are the provisions from that. I know there's another city in Ohio and Cincinnati that has been doing this for quite a while. Like I said, I think it's a number of steps to provide that accountability and transparency. But even in working through that release and how we maintain ourselves to the public and say, listen, we are transparent and we are accountable for our actions to be able to do that. So I look forward to the presentation. I thank all of you for your support for this piece of legislation. And I think, like President Somerville said, it wasn't just overwhelmingly supported. I think it was close to 89%. And so we do represent those who put us here and listening to their calls about what they want to see from us. This is just one of those steps. So thank you.
All right, thank you, Mayor. I'm going to share my screen now, so I want to make sure everyone can see this before you guys see my screen. Yes.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Okay, so a little bit of the history and background. We've already talked about this. Thank you, President Somerville and Mayor, for reminding us. But the 2020 Charter Review Commission made several recommendations for changes to Akron's charter, including proposing a new charter section related to disclosure of certain use of force recordings. In July 2020, this council voted to put that before the voters. And then in November, the charter amendment was adopted, again, as the mayor said, receiving 88.8% voter approval. And anecdotally, as far as we can tell, that's one of the highest supported charter amendments in city's history, possibly the highest. So the goal of the charter amendment and this ordinance is to foster greater public trust through enhanced accountability and transparency. The citizens of Akron have an undeniable interest in being provided accurate, timely information regarding how their police department engages with the public, especially where officers use deadly force or force that results in serious bodily injury. The ordinance sets the mandates for the public release of video recordings that document these critical incidents involving the Akron police. Research indicates that once enacted, this ordinance will put Akron at the forefront of transparency and public accountability related to use of force recordings among peer cities, that's state and nationwide. Just as a refresher, this is the charter section that the voters adopted this November. And as you can see, it's very basic, but it says council shall enact legislation requiring, with such exceptions as council may make, prompt public disclosure within a reasonable period of time of recordings made by video cameras worn by police officers or mounted on dashboards of police vehicles if the following conditions are met. The recording documents the use of deadly force by a police officer against a person, or the use of force by a police officer that causes serious bodily injury to a person, and that the disclosure of the recording is permissible under state and federal law. The legislation shall provide for enforcement in accordance with the procedures set forth in the Public Records Act, and that council shall enact this no later than June 30th. So taking us to the ordinance before you today, the ordinance to enact this charter section would require the city to release the portion of a video recording made by a city recording device that documents a police officer's use of deadly force against a person or use of force resulting in serious bodily injury to a person, as well as at least 60 seconds of video before the incident occurs. That asterisk indicates that's if such video exists. As we've seen in some other critical cases, sometimes that body-worn camera is turned on 30 seconds before an incident starts. So assuming that at least 60 seconds of video exists, that would be released as well. And when we talk about a city recording device, we're talking about primarily body-worn cameras because that's the existing technology that we have. But this ordinance is drafted to encompass any additional technology that may be adopted, video recording devices mounted to tasers. Again, if we begin using dash cameras again, we haven't used those for several years, but any kind of city recording device that's going to be issued to police officers would be covered by this ordinance. And this ordinance before you would require the city to release that footage of the incident from a minimum of 3 city recording devices. So that would be 3 body cameras. Again, assuming that at least 3 body cameras captured the incident within 7 days. And we would release any and all other footage of the incident, assuming there were, say, 10 or more body-worn cameras within 30 days. And all that footage would be redacted if required by state and federal law. I did want to pause on that one for a moment because there are very limited exceptions in state and federal law where body camera footage must be redacted. Privacy interests, like including if it showed a nude body, if it showed leads information, which would be very unusual or rare, showed someone's social security number, those are the kinds of redactions we're talking about. So once this ordinance goes into effect, the city will adopt policies and procedures to publicly post the relevant use of force videos within mandated timeframes on a portal available through the akroncops.org website. To start, it's probably going to be a YouTube page, but we're looking at some other technologies that may enable us to post these online in a different way. So any individual who believes that the city has not complied with its obligations under this section can file a petition with the director of law for the release of the footage. After receiving a petition, the city would determine whether that footage exists, and if it does exist, they would release it within 7 days. If it does not exist, they would issue a written response to the petitioner, letting them know that fact, again, within 7 days. And a petitioner can compel the city's compliance with its obligations under this ordinance by initiating an action as if the petition were made under the Ohio Public Records Act, and the same damages and attorney's fees would be available to a petitioner in this case as under the Ohio Public Records Act. Finally, once this ordinance goes into effect, the city will provide council and the public with additional information about where this footage will be posted and how petitions for footage can be filed with the city. So with that's the conclusion of my presentation, but I'd be happy to answer any questions as presented by the chair. Thank you. And I'm going to try to stop screen sharing if we can.
Thanks, Ellen. That was a very good slideshow. And I'm glad that you were able to provide that, answered a few of my questions. What I'll do is I'll take committee members first. I'll go to the hands raised function. Look for committee members that have any comments or questions. And currently I do not see anybody, so I'll move forward to any council members. I don't see any council members. Sarah, just double check for me, please. Oh, I do see Councilwoman Amobian. Please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ellen, if you could refer to those 3 areas that you identified that are or why footage would not be released. I know you said 30 number and there were 2 others.
Sure, I lost your audio there for a second, so I think I heard your question as what were the kinds of footage that would not be released?
The exceptions, yes.
Yeah, so that wasn't an exhaustive list, but there are very limited exceptions. Some of them come from federal law, some of them come from state law, where footage the city is basically prohibited from releasing certain things. It generally relates to privacy interests. So again, if you showed a nude body, or sometimes if there was some kind of child abuse report being depicted, which again, it's hard to imagine some of these circumstances coming up. Common ones are social security numbers, your driver's license number is confidential. If there was certain kinds of medical treatment being given by a medical professional, some of that may be subject to review for redactions. But again, the primary ones would be like, again, showing some kind of nudity, showing leads, which is a very protected source of police information. Again, that's a screen that could show up, say, in an officer's car during a call. Or again, they could be looking at someone's driver's license, you know, with their camera showing that would be just blurred out. Again, these are all just going to be, you know, blurred redactions. We're not going to be cutting footage or not producing videos because of this. It's going to be, you know, these very discrete scenarios that may come up.
Sure, and those are just examples. I understand it's not exhaustive. Let me ask you this. There will be a definite procedure or something listed somewhere where people can request this information, a certain form they use, or is that going to be part of what we're going to do? Or
so the core mandate of this ordinance is that this footage will be posted automatically. So within that 7-day time frame, the city will, as a matter of course, be posting these videos. No one has to request the footage for it to be posted. However, there is a fail-safe in there that if someone felt that there was a video that should have been released that wasn't released, there is an opportunity for them to file a petition with the director of law to request that. Again, it may be that that footage does not exist, or the incident, you know, didn't occur, or, you know, of course, if that incident did occur and it does fall into this, then the city would immediately release that, you know, within 7 days. So, but this is going to be done automatically by city policy.
oh, very good, very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Thanks, Alan. I'm going to go back to committee person Malik, Councilman Malik. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you for the presentation, Ms. Nisht. I think this is a really important step to creating transparency and trust, especially in these, you know, most critical incidents of deadly force. I know we had, you know, such a incident yesterday, but you know, I know these incidents are rare. But I think it's important that when they do happen, that there is this legally required and kind of automatic disclosure. So, you know, I want to thank President Somerville for spearheading this. I want to thank the mayor and the law department and the whole team for working on the details of how we're going to implement this. I guess I have 2 questions or sort of comments, I guess. I think the first is sort of just a question of kind of the number of videos that are disclosed. I think as we've seen in some of these incidents, you know, there can be in some cases upwards of 10 or more videos that capture a scene. And, you know, I think that we're obviously dealing with balancing the public interest in information, especially in these kinds of very critical incidents, versus the city's staffing capacity and making sure that we're not setting rules that are difficult to comply with. So I know that, you know, in many cases, there are only 3 officers. I think this is where this 3 videos within 7 days comes from. But I guess the question I had, Ms. Nish, is, you know, given that these incidents happen very often, how long do we think that it would take to review and redact one of these videos? You know, I know they can vary in length, but do you have we sort of crunched the numbers as to how long that process will take?
Thank you, Councilman Mock. That's a good question. And it's of course something that we've been looking into as we developed this ordinance. We felt that this was a standard that not only put us at the very forefront of what other communities are doing, but was something that was realistic for the staffing and the capacity that we had. Certainly, you know, again, we're going to strive to do this as fast as we can and, you know, potentially even exceed the standard set forth in this ordinance. But this is, you know, the mandatory 7 days we felt was reasonable, and 3 videos, again, in most cases is going to capture the video that exists regarding an incident. So again, we'll always strive to, you know, go above and beyond, but we felt that this was something that we could certainly, you know, this is a standard that we knew we could meet given the internal staffing capacity and just the technology of redactions and how that's developed. Mike Deffelbaugh's here from the law department. He, you know, works on some of these directly. I don't know if you have anything to add, Mike, but.
No, I think you covered it well. With the 3, more likely than not, that's going to cover a critical incident. And with that, we're going to get that out as quick as we possibly can. And we've already reviewed that and we're hopeful we can.
Great. Well, thank you for addressing that. You know, I think the other point that I want to make is that, you know, this, per the charter amendment, this covers incidents that involve the use of deadly force or incidents that, you know, that result in serious bodily injury. I did kind of want to point out there are certainly other incidents that might not meet these criteria, but might have significant public interest. Thinking, you know, of the incident that recently happened involving the snow being held against the individual's face, which I don't know whether it would, I think it likely would not, you know, fall under this rubric, or, you know, incidents that give rise to a civilian complaint. I think that I do agree with the point that Ms. Nish made, that this does put us at the forefront in terms of, you know, a guaranteed release of certain kinds of footage within 7 days. But I think we should look at how this works, how we implement this, and then look at potentially expanding this down the road to include other types of incidents like those involving a civilian complaint or other things. I think that, you know, especially when we look to 88% of voters approving this, I think it shows general support for the proposition that, you know, voters want more transparency. So I think we should kind of look to see how we can expand this going forward.
Thank you, Councilman. I do see Mayor Horgan's hand is up.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I think before we start to talk about expansion, I think we need to get really good at this because it is a new process. And if you look, you know, 7 years ago, there were no officers reviewing body-worn cameras. Now there's an entire team with the significant investment in a lot of technology to be able to do that. Policing has changed, delivering government service has changed. And we all need to think about how, as a city, you know, we fund that and we put resources towards that too, because it makes it look different. There's a difference between obviously the number of officers that are on the street and the number of officers and the number of civilian personnel. So I think even as a structure, we will probably need to come back and say, listen, to be able to meet the demands of what we have to do, these are the funding opportunities and these are the things that we need to be able to do it. And so it's a larger rhetorical 30,000-foot question, but it's something that you all should be thinking about as we come back and say, listen, as we have these mandates to be able to do it, and we are certainly, you know, putting those processes in place to be able to do it, it also sometimes makes it very difficult with all of the other things that we say, these are the things that we need to do to be successful. And I would just ask you to keep that in mind as we bring these forward, to be able to do that. Things change sometimes inside of a lot less than 7 years. They'll change in 2 or 3. And adapting or being flexible on those areas certainly helps us deliver that better service of which we're all here for. So thanks again.
Thanks, Mayor. Moving forward, does any other council members have any other questions? I do see Councilman Fusco.
Thank you, Mr. Kamer. Just remind everyone too that, you know, Akron, we were on the forefront whenever it come to the body cameras themselves. Truly a leader, not only in Ohio, but in the United States and became an example for a lot of other cities out there. So, and here we go again, breaking ground, new ground. So congratulations to the team.
Thanks, Councilman. If I don't see any other questions or comments, I will ask President Somerville or the mayor, what are their wishes in regards to this?
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. We are just asking for time. So we're not asking for a vote on today, giving council members an opportunity just to review the policy. And if you have any questions or concerns, just asking that you get in contact with Ellen.
All right. Thank you, President Somerville. With that, I'll ask the committee, somebody make a motion for time.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right. With that, we will take time. Thank you. And that is all we have for today's public safety meeting. With that, we are adjourned.
Our next committee meeting for the day is the Rules Committee meeting. Those committee members are Freeman, Fusco, Amobian, Connor, and Malik. We do not have Councilman Freeman yet. Just give him a minute to join. Okay, our next committee will be the Rules Committee. Those committee members again are Freeman, Fusco, Amobian, Connor, and Malik. All committee members are present. Are you ready, Mr. Chair?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Excuse me. I'd like to call. I'm sorry. Call the Rules Committee meeting to order. And if I could have a motion to accept the minutes from the last meeting.
I'll make
So
that
moved.
motion.
Okay,
I'll second it.
all in favor,
Either
please,
way.
please let me know by saying aye.
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 All right, very good. All right, Sarah, I'm going to ask if you could please read these in for us.
Item number 1 is offered by Mayor Horrigan and President Somerville. Resolution designating June 19th, 2021 and every June 19th thereafter as Juneteenth Independence Day in the city of Akron. In recognition of June 19th, 1865, the date on which news of the end of slavery in the United States reached enslaved persons in the southwestern states and declaring an emergency.
Very good, thank you. Let's open up the, I am so sorry, excuse me. We'll open up for comments. If we could, please.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Mobian.
you can excuse yourself and get some water or something. I don't want you to.
I've
You
got
okay?
something. I just got something here past few days, so.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. But anyway, I think this is a great step. Are we making this an official holiday for staff? I know that June 19th this year is on a Saturday, or is this just recognizing Juneteenth as Independence Day?
Mr.
What
Chair,
is
if I can
Yeah,
just
please.
say, yeah, so really and truly, this piece is just acknowledging, Juneteenth and also wanting just to recognize all the events that are going to be happening, across the city. But I think exactly what you said, Councilwoman Mobley, and we can have that conversation to move in that direction if this body feels so. So we can definitely begin those conversations for next year, for sure.
That's fantastic. I can only tell you that I'm pleased to let you know that my agency is recognizing Juneteenth as a national holiday, holiday for our agency. And we're probably the first in the city of Akron to do that. I'm not sure though, and we're recognizing it this Friday. So I think that is something to think about in the future. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I know, in fact, just received notice last week, the Salvation Army in Northeast Ohio is recognizing Juneteenth this week. And this will be, I think, the first time for them, but I hopefully see this as a national trend. So any other comments we might have? Looking around all right. Do I have a motion from someone to suspend the rules?
So move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
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 I'd like for us to
Opposed?
entertain this evening, Mr. Chair, this being council and mayor and council as a whole, if possible.
Okay, very good. We will make that call this evening then. All right, Sarah, do we have anything else before us?
Mr. Chair, I'm not sure if you can see that Councilman Malik has his hand raised.
I cannot. Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, Councilman Malik, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to follow up on the point that Councilwoman Mobian and President Somerville both raised about, making it a full holiday for city employees. I wonder whether we might be able to bring in a substitute this evening that might include some language about kind of planning for that for next year, maybe setting out kind of a process, because I know obviously it is a complicated question. But I know, that has been something that we've talked about in the past. I know Councilman Staples talked about that in the past. So that might be a great way of kind of, setting out where we'd like to go for future years, if that's something this council is interested in.
Councilman Malik, I think that's a great point. I think there's some more conversations that we have to have because unions are also involved in this process. So I don't know if we're going to be able to do all of that this evening, but again, we will definitely keep the conversation going, okay? And bringing those appropriate individuals to the table.
Very good. Councilman Malik, I see your hand still up.
Yes. Yeah. And I just want to be very clear. I was not suggesting that we try to have those conversations by this evening. I was merely suggesting that maybe in this resolution, we could include some language stating that we'll work on having those conversations over the course of the next few months and up to the next year, if that's something that would be agreeable.
Yes, we can. We can definitely do that, Councilman Malik.
Thank you.
Very good. All right, we'll see that item comes before us this evening, and we'll also make the recommendation for mayor and council as a whole. I believe that's all we had, and we will adjourn.
Thank you.
Our next committee meeting will be the Budget and Finance Committee meeting, and that will begin at 3 o'clock. Those committee members are Freeman, Amobian, Malik, Baylor, and Lombardo. Again, that will begin at 3 o'clock.
I'm going to